It is streaming and recording now, so go ahead, Gregory.
All right. This week we're talking about specialized knowledge, chapter 5 in Think and Grow Rich. Specialized knowledge. I made a few notes to start off with, and it's that knowledge is not power. Knowledge is potential power. It's not necessarily the knowing or the obtaining of knowledge, but it's how it's applied. And it said in the book here, knowledge will not attract anything unless it is organized and intelligently directed through practical plans of action toward a definite goal, definite end. And I believe from the stories in the book, it really is more about the application of knowledge. A lot of the stories, not every one of them, but a lot of them were where somebody took knowledge that was not uncommon for a lot of people to have, such as the story with the mobile bookkeeping. Bookkeeping was not it wasn't a new skill or an uncommon skill, but it was how it was applied that made him greatly successful with it. And with the lady with the marketing, marketing, of course, is not a new skill. It wasn't anything uncommon, but it was her ideas and creativity on how she applied that made her greatly successful. So I think my takeaway on that chapter really is the application of the knowledge, how you apply. And with that, anyone want to take it from there and give their take or their ideas on specialized knowledge? Allison?
Sure. I also love the fact that knowledge is different from schooling, because so many of these men did not have formal schooling, but they had the knowledge of they had their idea, and they acquired knowledge about their idea, and that, along with their sort of burning desire to make a difference, is really what made them successful. And the other thing I really liked about, specialized knowledge is something that you can buy in. You don't have to know everything, because nobody does. So those are some of the other nuances about knowledge and the potential of knowledge, which I really loved.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about you don't always necessarily have to have it. You can like Henry Ford, he had people around him that had all the knowledge that he needed. I believe Andrew Carnegie was the same way. He himself said he didn't know all the technical side of the steel industry, but he had all the people around him who did, and because of that, he really didn't even care to know it. He knew how to get that knowledge from the different people around him. So, very good point.
So one of the things about Henry Ford was when he sued the newspaper, and because they defamed him, and he turned around and the opposition barrister put him on the stand and started asking all these ridiculous questions to show that he was an ignorant man. And after one specifically obnoxious question, he turned around and said, why would I need to clutter my brain with all of this useless knowledge when I've got a row of buttons that I can push and get any kind of knowledge I want? And it was within that where everybody realized that even though he only had up to year 3 education or whatever it was, he was actually an educated man. And the big thing that I got out of this chapter was, when it comes to specialized knowledge, you've got general knowledge, you've got specialized knowledge. But it's the specialized knowledge that people will go to university to go and acquire so that they can get paid better money. But that doesn't mean that you have to have that knowledge yourself. You can actually go and obtain that knowledge from somebody, hopefully somebody in your mastermind group that has that kind of knowledge. So you don't actually have to have the specialized knowledge yourself, and you can't actually survive with the specialized knowledge. You can't have it all. You can't know everything.
Right. Right. Adrian, you raise your hand.
Have any of you heard the story about the factory owner with the problem with the machine in his factory, and he calls the guy to fix it, and he charges him $10,000 for just tapping it, and then asks for a revision of the bill, and he says, okay, $10 for the hammer and the $9,990 for knowing where to tap it.
Yeah, I remember.
Agree.
That I think a lot of plumbers do that now.
And that's it. There are some people who are paid for what they know, not for what they do. And there are some people who are paid for what they do, which is part of what they know. So, you know, that knowledge is your skill is sometimes part of your knowledge, and sometimes it's something that's gained outside of your specialization. Because the other thing that he said I really loved was about when they were looking for job candidates, they didn't necessarily take people who had the best specialized knowledge. They looked for wider than that. They looked for character and personality and somebody who contributed to their community, whatever, all those extracurricular activities that actually build the person. And, you know, education, as they also said, is not about learning. Education is from within to expand your mind. And so those are some other nuances which I really love about education, and about, you know, how we take knowledge and how we use knowledge and how we value knowledge.
That's very good. I liked it how it said that in there about how knowledge. I think educo or edico, that the word comes from education, and that it means to draw from within, and that's really where everything in our life comes from. It comes from within. Our outside world is a reflection of what we have inside, and I think that shows a lot in those stories where they took knowledge that was pretty much common, but they took from within their own ideas and creativity and put their own twist on it and really excelled with it, doing something that no one else was doing with it.
Yeah. Do we relate this to our own personal experiences, or do we just study the chapter 5?
I feel you can use your own experiences if you want to too. It's really just, you know, what we take away from it, what we feel about it, or what we have to add on it, or our comments or ideas on the material that Napoleon Hill wrote.
Okay, all right. Because one of the things that Think and Grow Rich taught me, that I took on board for a long, long time, is that you know, when they say it is not about knowledge. Knowledge is free for everybody. We are in an era now of information overload. And that got me to a thinking of, well, if all this knowledge is available, then why do people bother to even do anything at all? Because everything's so accessible. What is it that you can offer a person? What is it that you can give? What is a product that isn't highly competitive, et cetera, et cetera? And one of the things that I've realized is, and it works beautifully for me, is that now with a lot of the changes that have come about due to the external circumstances of nature, with COVID and climate change, all of it brings me to a point whereby the one thing that works is that everybody, every human being, always welcomes, desires, and requires love and uplifting. Now, what has that got to do with knowledge? Everything. Because when you follow through the process of coming to understand that I can do this, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I wouldn't have a clue. I don't know exactly when but I'm going to do it. That now brings up trust and faith. a trust and faith, not only in myself, I'm going to do it, but a trust and faith that universally I will be supported, and supported by an energy that is in and around everywhere, that will always put me or have me in a place of feeling, I'm saying the word feeling with an emphasis, of feeling great about everything that I do and appreciative that I can. Now, what has that got to do with anything? I've got a radio station. I've never had a radio station before in my life. I have 20 presenters on board. Those presenters, I don't tell them what to do. I don't tell them when to do it. It's their radio station. The only requirement to be a presenter on the radio station is that you love what you do and that you enjoy what you do, and nothing else matters, because the rest just comes. So I've got broadcasters there that have never presented or broadcasted before in their life. And within 2 weeks, they're up and running and doing a show. And it all comes back down to one thing: the trust and the faith that I have in a radio station that I took on as a challenge, as a joke, an absolute joke of a dear friend of mine in the UK. I mean, you know, I was at the time 67 years old. And when he said start a radio station on the New South Wales Central Coast, and I have never, ever had anything to do with radio, I laughed at him and said, "You got to be kidding me, don't you? Where do you get off?" And he said, "You will love it. You'll enjoy it. It's right up your alley." Now, I've known this young man 30, 40 years. We have done a lot of work together. And it only took me a few minutes, and I said, "You're on. I'll take it on." And he coupled that with, "I'll give you all the support that you need, any questions that you have, and off you go." I haven't looked back. Now, I had no knowledge, but the knowledge came with every single step that I took to build this thing. When you need it, it comes. And it'll come through a phone call. It'll come through a person. Also, you know, when he said to me, "You're going to need at least 30 to 40 presenters," I laughed at him and I said, "What? You're kidding me, aren't you? Where the hell and how the hell am I going to get all these people to broadcast on a radio station when I haven't got the first idea of what I'm doing?" He said, "You watch, they'll come. They'll just come." And that's exactly what happened. I didn't have to do any big advertising or big promotions or campaigns, or all I did was I just put up on Facebook one day and said, "I need some presenters for a radio station. If you're interested, contact me." Well, oh my goodness. You know, and here they are. Now, I guess why I'm telling you all this is because that's the very thing that Think and Go Rich is talking about. It's about a belief in ourselves. It's about believing that together with the universe, we can do, be and have anything. And to never stray away from it. I stray away from it far too often for my own good. But I always jump back in. And, yeah, I mean, that's my dedication to myself and getting there in the end. And I have to do some work towards that, you know. I do a lot of stuff on Gaia. Has anyone been part of Gaia? Yeah. You know, and there are just so many beautiful, 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 wonderful people that have got so many strong, powerful messages. I don't know where to begin sometimes. And, you know, that's where Think and Grow Rich is just invaluable, totally invaluable. And that's what it gave me. It actually gave me that. It gave me that night to jump in, see Tony Robbins, go for a job and get the job confidently. because I knew like I knew like I knew. Where did that knowing come from? I don't know. I have no idea. How did I know I was going to get that job? The minute I saw it, I said, I'm getting that job. And I started on the Monday, applied for it on a Saturday of all things. I was lucky enough there was somebody in the office. That's Think and Grow Rich, you know. Yeah.
So thank you for that story. I just love that story because one of the common themes throughout Think and Grow Rich is when the idea comes to you, start whether you're ready or you're not. And when you were challenged with regards to the radio, and you just took it on. And you know, when I started this group, it came to me, and I could have let so many doubts and fears stop me from doing what's going to happen. Even this group, you know, it came to me, and when it came to me, it was, I've got to start it now. And I could have so easily have said, oh no, well, we've got Christmas, New Year, all of these things to go through, and then I'm going away, like I'm away right now. But I just took it when the idea came to me at the time. And I'm just allowing just things to unfold as they unfold. And it sounds like that's what you did with your radio station. It's such a great inspirational story, and thank you for sharing that.
Yes, yeah, thank you. And Allison, you just made a good point in the comments about how the how will show up. I've read that in another book, actually, also about if you you start right where you are now in the conditions you're in now, even if you don't have the knowledge or even the any of the different things that you feel that you need, because each time you do something and work with what you have, that opens the door for the next step. And once you take that next step and you're familiar with that and you're doing that, that opens the door for the next step. But you're not going to see any of this in the beginning usually. Very, very good.
I love that, Gregory. That was beautifully said. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm trying to.
I love a lot of what Gregory says because he is so well. He says it so eloquently, and same with you, Alison. Both of you and everyone, I suppose, says it so eloquently. But I've known Gregory for I don't know 6 or 7 months now, maybe a little bit longer, and I know that he does love this kind of getting his head around these kind of books. And Think and Grow Rich is one of the books that he really has spoken a lot about.
Yeah, I'm fascinated with this whole issue about our abilities and creative powers and things that the vast majority of my life, nobody ever exposed me to any of this. I stumbled upon it years ago, and it just grew from there. It really took off. I tried a little bit of trading, stock trading for a while, and I did well, and then I didn't do well. And I found out it's not really about any particular skill or knowledge of the stock market. It was all psychological. And so when I found that out, I started to look even more into the psychology of things, and it just one thing led to another. I left trading behind. I don't even care about that anymore. Now I'm just all into how much ability and potential we have. And the more I learn about the universe and the way things work and our mind and the creative powers, it fascinates me. Now I'm on a path now. I'll never know it all. Like I was talking with Angelica earlier, there's no way to ever know it all. It's a lifelong process to it's amazing. So, and one point he brings up in the book about specialized knowledge, some of the examples that he gives of where to get it. One, he talks about your own experience and education. And I believe the experiences, we've all experienced things in life, and a lot of things now I look back and I see where parts of my life that doesn't seem any way related to now. I can look back now and it's almost like it seems a little strange, but it don't at the same time. It almost seems like my whole life I've been being taught lessons that lead up till now. And there's various different odds and ends, bits and pieces of information from different parts of my life that really apply to now, that makes the things that I'm doing now, it's kind of hard to explain. I'm trying to feel my way how to say this, but it's like it's almost like I've been being built, and now I'm at the point where it's time to put it all together, if that makes any sense. I know what I'm trying to say. I'm not quite sure how to put it into words.
You might be better to write a song, Gregory.
I
Yes.
think that's beautifully said. I love being put together, that concept. I think we all are, because we're all a work in progress, right? I love that.
Right. Yeah, I mentioned one week about a garden. The seeds that you plant in your garden, your life is like the garden. You're either planting your own seeds and growing what you want, or you're allowing seeds to be put in there and you're getting a garden full of weeds, a life full of things you don't want. And but when thinking about it like that, it's almost like I've been growing all that time, and it didn't seem like sometimes there was any growth at all. But yeah, when he said your own experience in education, I really, it kind of dawned on me about that, made me think about it. And as far as education, I don't know how it is in Australia. I know the school I went to here in the U.S., it was they actually stomped out all of my creativity when I was young. I was punished for it and made to see psychologists and everything, because I would draw and write and everything else, and they didn't like that. They were on me all the time. They give me book reports about people like Christopher Columbus, Abraham Lincoln, and I would actually read like journals from the actual people from their time period and things like that. I'd put together a report full of facts and things. I thought I did real good, and then I'd get failures on it, and they said I was trying to diminish or change the image of these people. I'm like, I'm just telling the truth. So my school system really did a lot of damage to my own my own creative abilities, which they're coming back, but not in the same areas. And as far as what I learned there, it didn't stick. It was with memorizing and passing a test and forgetting it. And I think it was Mark Twain that said that he never allowed school to get in the way of his education. And I thought that was great. And Paul, it looked like you was raising your hand.
Yeah, I thought I'd just add, since you're going on about the schooling system in Australia, and the first thing is Napoleon Hill was actually not a big advocate of the schooling system himself. Initially, the schools were set up by the ultra-rich for their children so that they could remain and keep that knowledge for themselves, but it filtered down, and I don't know if it was Napoleon Hill, but there are people, I have read it last year in one of the books that I read, and I think it was Napoleon Hill. Whereas if you take a student who is just starting out school, they're always putting up their hands, they're eager. I have a look at my 10-year-old son. He's always got his hand up. He loves to participate in class and what's happening in class, and to the point where the teacher says anybody but Apollo can answer this question. But when children first start at school, they're enthusiastic and they love it. But within 10 years, by the time they're teenagers, they will sit at the back of the class and they will not participate because they've taken all of that life out of the child already. It's a system that's really set up to create a person that's going to become a good employee. And that's why I'm not a big advocate of the schooling system. As far as I'm concerned, I would love my children to become entrepreneurs. And if they become entrepreneurs, well, do they really need to be the top of their class? And even in the book, Napoleon Hill says, if you're a people person, you're going to get hired more than if you were the top of the class. So, and again, in Australia, and I live in Ramsgate, so a suburb that's close to us is Hurstville. And Hurstville have a lot of Asian students, and the Asians are all about education, school, to the point where they will be studying or sending their kids to tutoring 5, 6, 7 days a week so that they could be the top of their class. And really, is that what schooling is all about? Is it really about, as Gregory said, is it really about losing all your creativity and being able to remember a few dates in history? And I don't think so. So, yeah, the whole schooling system, I think, needs to be shaken up. And I think that, we need to allow our children just to be children and be able to express their creativity. And that's what I like to encourage with my children, is to use their creativity.
Well spoken, Paul.
Thank you.
No, really, it brings an example again. The education system. I think we can just about do away with it. That's probably the answer. But my son, who is now 37, at the age of 13, came to me and he said, "Mum, I'm not going back to school. I hate it. I absolutely hate it." And I thought, okay, all right, well, that's all right. If you don't want to go back to school, don't go back to school. I said, "But what will you do?" And he said, "I just want to explore some avenues and have a look around and see what I really would like to do. And I can't do that at school." And I said, "Is there any particular reason why you don't want to go back?" And he said, "Look, the teachers, the classes, they bore me. I'm just not interested." And I said, "That's fine, Chris, not a problem." Now, the reasons why I came to that decision, you can pick up schooling at any point in life that you want to. You can pick up doing programs and education courses until the cows come home. There's that much available. And if we bring it back to the beginning, then it's when the pupil's ready, the teacher appears one way or another, whether that's in form of a book or a person or a course or whatever, it doesn't matter. And the most important ingredient in all of it is, why would I be sending my son out to do something that intuitively he's told me he does not want to do? It is not in his heart to do. So what developed out of that was a couple of years later. Now, my two boys, they're virtually 11 months apart. But a couple of years later, my eldest son came to me and he said, "Mum, I want to do an apprenticeship with Airmaster, which is a commercial air conditioning company in Australia, and quite a big one. It's national." And I said, "Are you sure that's what you want to do?" And they said, yeah. "I want to do this because they're going to put me through to get an engineering qualification." And I said, "Oh, okay, all right. Well, so long as that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it." Now, he went ahead and did that, and my youngest son got very intrigued with what he was doing with his engineering and jumped in and said, "Can I do this too?" So my eldest son went to the company and said, "Look, I can't continue with the apprenticeship unless you take my younger brother." And they said, "What?" And he said, "Well, I'm not going to finish with you guys because my younger brother needs to come on board. We need to do this together." And they turned around and said, well, bring him on board. Let's do it. Those two boys got their qualifications. They're fully qualified engineers. They still work for that company. And the company pays for their house, pays for their car, pay the lurks and perks. They go overseas 4 times a year. They take the whole family with the kids, and they love what they do. The proof is in the pudding. So it comes to, like, you know, why our education system cripples the creativity in children. And not only that, it's also with the teachers. Look at the teachers. When the teachers love what they do, they inspire and motivate the children. They put fun back into the system and encourage the learning. When that happens, children respond differently, and then all of a sudden they will welcome coming to school. But if the teachers aren't doing that, and they're there because they've got a job and they want to get paid, and they're doing it all for the wrong reasons. And that doesn't just apply to the education system. That applies to every industry that you can think about. You know, like if you go to a doctor that's just got a doctorate, that's just there to do a job, he's not going to take a personal interest in his patients. Have a look at what's happening to our medical system in that realm. How many doctors can you that take a personal interest and go outside the square to provide a, I can see you, Anna, that provide a service that is really personal? You know, like, it's just seems to be everywhere. I just always try and find the good side of it all, the good in the person that's doing it, and can be very accepting. Oh, yeah, you're doing your job. That's okay. That's fine. Not a problem. Yeah. So there you go. There's my little story again.
I do believe that is a widespread problem. I got 3 people, I think, raising their hands: Allison, Anna, and Claire. So I think any one of you want to.
You take Anna or
Let's
Claire.
go. What about Anna?
Yeah, go Anna or Claire, and I can come back later on.
I have an alternative view, if I may. I hear you all and I understand you all, but I have my experience. And in my experience, when I was in kindergarten, actually before in the childcare, I was forced to be creative. Forced. I was. They were giving us, and it's the biggest trauma. So for me, it was in the childhood. So they were putting the canvases and they were asking us to draw something. And I believed that I can't draw. And they were forcing me to draw a horse. Everybody was standing, all the kids were having fun and drawing horses. And I was too little and I thought I can't draw a horse. So they punished me. And I came back to home, and that's not the only one occasion, it's just the brightest memory. And I told my parents, I don't want to go to childcare ever again. And I made them put me to school earlier, 1 year earlier, because they didn't know where to put me, and I didn't want to go to childcare. So at school, I was the youngest child, and I'm a single child. I don't have any siblings, and I didn't have any friends. In fact, I didn't have any friends to the end of the school, all 11 years. And when I went to uni, I thought, okay, time to change my life, and I'm going to have friends, and I made friends. But why I'm saying that is that I look at my kids, and one of my child is very creative, and another one doesn't have that spur of creativity, and is very logical. Somewhat similar to me, and I can tell you that if there wouldn't be any school for him, if there would be like an opportunity to do whatever you like, and the same for me, if there wouldn't be any direction and like a strong logical way, like you're waking up, you go into school, you learn this, that's your outcome, nothing would come up good in the end of it by the time when I came to uni, because I wouldn't have any direction in life, and I doubt that I would find it. That's my personal opinion. Maybe I'm a minority, but from the way how I see people around, there are quite a lot of logical people, people who prevail logic versus creativity. I'm not saying it's one or another, but I'm saying that
Yep.
a lot of times you have one more than the other. And for those people, it's good to have the schedule. It's good to, it's secure and it's clear of what we're doing and how we're doing and step by step. So the time comes when you decide to go out of the matrix, and you just step out of the matrix and you're confident and you know how to do it because you learn the confidence through the schooling. So schooling for me is confidence. I don't see anything bad with the schooling. In Australian school, in comparison with European schooling, in Australian school, there is a lot of creativity. The kids draw every day, they express themselves every day, they write stories, they discuss books. So I'm not sure. That's my view.
School, the structure and basics of school are really important. I used to think this way, and we actually homeschool a child this way. And I recently heard that Elon Musk has a school for his kids and his employees where they do learn the structure, like you're talking about, that's necessary and important, and all the basics, reading, writing, add and subtract, and things like that. But then when it comes to their life, their interest and everything, whatever their interest and their main focus is, they help them to develop that instead of discouraging it like my school did. They encourage it and help them grow with that. So they're getting a little bit of both, the structure and basics, along with the encouragement and development of their real true skill and interest. So schools, the basic schools, I don't think they're bad. I just think they need updated, maybe is the word. I think they were created the way they are now back in the industrial age, which is long gone now, and they're still with that. And Claire, you've been wanting to talk. I think you're muted. We can't hear you right now. I see you talking. I think you're still on mute, Claire.
Claire, up the top, there's something that says MIC. See if you can push on that and see if that helps.
I think Claire had issues because speaker didn't come up for her before. So I don't know whether that speaker might be something else, Claire. Hit that.
Say something,
So-
Claire. Can you say something? Okay.
So Claire, if you go to the menu and if you go to audiovisual settings and go to the audiovisual settings, it will give you the microphone. There's a few, you might have a different microphone attached somewhere.
Claire, nod your head if you can hear us. Okay.
Just can't hear you.
I'm checking the settings for Claire, and her microphone's on in this system.
What about the speaker? Is her speaker on? You know that speaker icon at the top?
Yeah, I'm looking at all the attendees. The only person on mute at the moment is Anna.
Oh, she says it's her phone.
I have a question to you while Claire looking for a speaker. The question is, have you had a point when you do have specialized knowledge, you're very confident in your specialized knowledge, but for a moment you lose the idea?
Oh, hell yeah.
It comes back to you later.
And just before we go on that, if I may, I think, Anna, what you were saying, in my opinion, is very similar to what Angelica was saying. Whereas with Angelica and even Greg, they were talking about the, like, the 3 hours of reading, writing, arithmetic, which you have to do, pass or fail. And now, especially in Australia with NAPLAN, that's such a pain in the neck because teachers are not teaching to the test. Whereas if you're forcing kids to learn to write or to spell or to add up or whatever, it's the same thing as forcing them to be creative. So forcing them either way is not, doesn't work because it stifles the child's creativity and also enthusiasm for learning. For example,
yeah.
my son was very good. He could read by the time he went to school. So he was a 5-year-old in kindergarten, which is what they call it here in Canberra, and he could read. Why did he read? Because he loved sport and he used to read the newspaper and read the football results. So he goes to school and they see, oh, this child can read. So what do they want to give him? Chapter books. For fuck's sake, pardon my language. Chapter books are written for 8-year-olds. So emotionally, he wasn't a chapter book reader. Emotionally, he was still a 5-year-old. So they actually killed his love of knowledge and his love of learning. As a little boy, he'd go to bed reading a year 8 textbook from 1978 about, the countries of the world. So he knew all the capital cities in bloody Africa or whatever. No, not Africa, around the world, including, some of the populations in Africa and really bizarre, stuff nobody needs to know. But he loved learning. But school killed that because you have to just, you can read, at whatever age, you've got to read something that's to your standard. Doesn't matter about your interest. And from my perspective, I'm quite passionate about this, as you can see, and I'm also an ex-teacher. So as you can see, regardless of what your skills are, what have you, if they kill it, it's gone. But
Are you sure? Do you think so? Like I would question that. I don't believe anything can be killed or whatever person possesses, you can go back and you can recreate it. I just mentioned that I didn't have friends at school at all. I had zero kids. I didn't talk to any kids at school till the end of the school. And when I went to uni, I literally made a conscious decision that now I'm going to have a lot of friends. It was conscious decision. And from day one, I've just behaved in the way. I've changed my behavior from day one. I went to a different educating facility, right? And it's just I think you can if you have something deep in yourself. And I'm with you, Alison, because my older son is exactly the same. He could read and write in the age of 3. He could recite poems and everything. And then now he's 18, and but he still has the drive for knowledge. Like you can't kill it. You can't.
No, you're right. And in the instance of my son, luckily, he managed to get through high school as well. And when he got to uni, that's when he really found his niche, because he actually had the vehicle to be able to learn the way he wanted and do what he needed to do to expand his mind and redevelop his love for learning. But unfortunately, he doesn't like reading books now because that whole love of reading they have killed. So I agree with you that that zest for knowledge and learning will come back. But there are definitely the things that schools sort of turn kids off, in my experience, based on my son particularly, but also with some of the kids that I've taught over the years.
I think it's kind of like what Angelica said about the way the teachers teach too. If they're not interested in what they're teaching, I'm not sure if I said it exactly like she did, but then the children aren't going to learn it. Because in my school, I had zero interest in what they were trying to teach, and I believe a lot of it was their teaching style. There was I barely got through high school. I got better grades at the last year than I ever did before. I think they just wanted to get rid of me. But when I first went into college, my first college courses, it was something I was interested in, and they were open, let you write and speak at what you wanted, and so I got straight A's through that. And it was just a difference of being interested in something and not being interested. And what I did not do well in high school I later developed on my own because I wanted to, and I could do it in a way that I absorbed and was interested in. So I really think the approach, the teaching approach, makes a big difference in whether it's accepted or not. Sometimes.
Well,
Adrian?
I think we you know, every education system in every country, you just have to hope it's like cars, that it will progress on a country level better than the last year or the last generation. So don't go back to winding up the windows and having hot seats and stuff in the car and no aircon, and just hope it gets better. But you must never, probably good idea to entirely trust a government's education system. All you can hope for is that your kid is going to have a couple of teachers who see the potential of your kid and bring out the most in your kid. I mean, I have a similar experience too. I was overwhelmed at school with how much of it was rote learning and parrot fashion, and I dug my heels in and refused to learn on every subject parrot fashion until I worked out a more methodology. I didn't study English. Methodology. I'm lost. I need a glass of wine to say this.
Methodical. Methodical, Adrian.
methodology, Adrian.
Methodical.
Yes.
Methodical.
And then when later in life, after school, where I had to learn other languages, and the same thing, rote learning in parrot fashion. But by then, I appreciated that it was faster to learn it that way in some cases. But they don't give you that choice at school. And I think, just as he says throughout Think and Grow Rich, you know, no one has a perfect education. No one is born with the perfect capital situation they need to start their business. And no one's born or has the perfect friend or network or mastermind group. They're not born with that. You have to go out and do it. And I really, when I put my heels down and stuck them in the ground to not learn rote learning, I concentrated on learning how the thing worked, how to answer the question, not what the answer was, in most of my subjects. And I can remember signing up for a language course to study Thai in record amount of time because I had to open an office there, and they had already started the course and were halfway through. I had 2 weekends, and I basically got this huge piece of paper and mapped the language that they had taught the other students and put the nouns and the verbs and everywhere, and just made a map and looked for common denominators. And the teacher told me what the sentence structure was for grammar. And then I just put all the time words, all the number words, all the place words, and just came into the class and then picked it up. And by the end of the third level of that, I topped the class in conversation and went to Thailand and opened an office there. It depends on what your motivation is for meeting people, what it is for learning something. And like Anna said, if someone wants to do something, it doesn't matter what their environment's doing to try and kill it or suppress it. Like you say, Gregory, where they're trying to suppress that creativity. That people have been trying to suppress creativity in people for centuries. Okay, it's just something they do. It's why this book is not taught in schools. Okay, you have to go and buy it, and you have to teach your kids how to learn the things in that book as early as possible.
Oh,
Thank you.
Very interesting, Adrian. Because at the end of the day, what does Think and Grow Rich actually teach? And to my way of thinking, Think and Grow Rich teaches you not only how to be an entrepreneur, but it also teaches you how to be a human being. And how to be a human being and an entrepreneur, what is that? What does that actually mean? And it means that when a person can adapt themselves in a manner whereby their appreciation for life itself is the key element to love, joy, and happiness. And when that is fulfilled within self, and you can feel a satisfaction for just being alive, a satisfaction for everything that you're doing and the people that you meet and everything in life, then well, that's how my journey began. It's in that recognition alone that took me on a whole journey of life appreciation, which in turn taught me the skills to be able to be a good leader and to be a great, wonderful person. Not everyone's going to agree with that. There's no expectation that they should. And it doesn't matter whether they do or don't. It's my level of acceptance of who I am and where I'm coming from. And that, where do you learn that at school? You know, I've often thought, geez, wouldn't it be great if we, instead of childcare centres and instead of preschools, we had some kind of schooling whereby we can all learn about what we are, who we are, where are we going, what's our purpose, why are we even born, what is this planet that we're on? And when we come to understand that and understand in a universal power greater than ourselves, whatever that may be to people, in the form of a humongous energy of intelligence that we're all part of, that we can actually utilize by working with it and understanding it, that brings us to greatness and better and wonderful things. And it brings us to a great life, irrespective of environment and surroundings. Am I happy with my surroundings? No, I'm not. Could they be better? Absolutely. Does it mean I have to be unhappy? No, it does not. And that's how I get through life. And for me, it's very satisfying, very fulfilling. It's very wholesome. And I got all of that out of Think and Grow Rich. I got it all out of Dale Carnegie. I got it out of Deepak Chopra. I got it out of. You know, Brian Tracy is very interesting because Brian Tracy applies those very principles to business. The difference between Tony Robbins and Brian Tracy is purely and simply one teaches the same lessons for personal development. The other one teaches the same principles for development of business and how to apply. You know, they're amazing gifts. They are gifts. And all of this is available to us freely, I might add.
Yeah,
It's a wonderful group, by the way. I don't get much of a chance to talk like this. I generally don't.
Anthony, did you want to say something?
I haven't read any chapters since I last left you guys. I've been flat out flying and doing seminars, and then I've literally just got back to work today. And
Well, I guess you missed your chance then.
I missed my chance. Yes. I was having headaches after the seminar because we had so much information getting crammed into us. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out what chapter we're up to. We're up to chapter 6.
5.
With specialized knowledge.
Is that 6 or 5?
that's chapter 5.
5.
Thank you.
Chapter 6 chapter 6 is imagination, and it kind of feeds off of this because he mentions in here capability means imagination, the one quality needed to combine specialized knowledge with ideas. And I like how we talk a lot about creativity because that goes along with the specialized knowledge too.
Yep. So specialized knowledge from the last time I read the book was your paycheck is determined by the ability to not be able to replace you. If you have specialised knowledge, you can then govern the amount of money that you get paid, plus the ability to have no one be able to replace you. So, yeah, that was the thing that I got out of that chapter. And you can look at any profession, whether it's a doctor, dentist, lawyer, you can go on. They all specialise in a certain field, and with that specialised knowledge, they can then charge virtually whatever they want, depending on what the industry is. But talking about schools, my youngest daughter has dyslexia. So the reason I actually was late to the Zoom meeting is because she's literally went back to school today, and it's I spend at least 10 minutes every afternoon to read because she has a short attention span. So what I'm doing now is I'm timing her as we read, and I'm showing her the time limit for when she decides to cut off reading. And I'm making her conscious of the time of her consciousness so she can extend that time limit so she can focus longer. So when she does end up in high school, it doesn't become too overwhelming for her. But yeah, sorry I'm late, by the way. Yeah, I'm getting back into that whole routine again. So yeah, it's been a bit crazy. But yeah, I've got to reread chapter 5. Sorry?
But you were here.
Yes, but I'm here because I got off the book because we're reading Narnia, The Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe. And I went, oh shit, what time is it? I went, oh my God, it's 6. So I ran and quickly hopped on. Yeah, but it's good to see all you guys. Sorry I haven't been here for the last 2 weeks. Yeah, and I love this group too. Yeah.
It's interesting interesting how you see that specialized knowledge make you like not interchangeable.
No, not replaceable.
Not replaceable. Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that. Like we're all replaceable. It's just sometimes harder to replace one person, right? Because the other one has to grow into the other person's shoes.
Your salary is based on that. So I do cabinet making, and there's lots of cabinet makers, and therefore we only earn a small amount of money. But when you specialize in a certain area and you become really good at it, you can then your value to the marketplace is a lot greater.
As an employee, the way how I read the book is that like you start with the burning desire, you elaborate the belief that whatever you desire you can achieve, you act on it. While you act on it, you gather the specialized knowledge during the action, and before you kind of like protrude through achieving where you're going to. So it's more of it's like a one line, and the line has those beads, and you can look at them as beads, or you can look that as a line. So you're not necessarily like it's just gonna happen whether you like it or not. If you dream of something and you decide to do that, and you've never done it this particular way, you're meant to get the specialized knowledge, whether you like it or not.
You inherit it. You inherit it through the trial. You inherit it through the trials and errors and learn from your lessons. Yes.
Yeah, it's more like
which are inevitable, which are going to come.
Yeah, it's more like beware. Once you develop a desire, and if you decide to believe and act upon it, beware. You're gonna learn a lot.
So
and you do.
What you desire
and you do. Oh, you do. Believe you me, you do. After 2 years of radio and not knowing one single thing about it, I can't believe that I even did it. Let alone, I just can't. It is. It's almost. How do we describe that as a feeling? It is so miraculously unbelievable that it's even got to where it is. I just have to hit my head sometimes and go, how did that happen? How did that happen? But
Yeah,
it
yeah.
happened for exactly what you were just reading, Anna, for exactly those reasons. You know,
Yeah,
and
the
it's
question is
amazing.
how do you avoid like stagnation, right? So you spend 2 years in this direction. So
Yeah.
question to everyone. Usually, the first the idea is exhilarating. You jump into it. The first year, you just fly. You learn a lot. You enjoy a lot. The second year is a harder work, but at the same time, you keep learning. The third year,
Yeah.
you keep going. So
I'm
how
Yeah,
do
up to
you?
the
yeah,
third
but
year. I'm up to the
yeah, but
third year.
yeah, so am I. Like I'm heading to the third year now.
Yes.
Me
Anna,
too.
but Anna, look, the way, let's put it this way. Sometimes people think that creativity is just about drawing or poetry or music or
Oh
whatever.
no.
Right? It's far greater than that. Now, I get inspired. I can't wait to get up in the morning because I know already in advance how great the day's going to be before I even start. It's just because I know, and in that knowing comes the potential to be able to grow as big as you want to grow. Now, I don't know what people's general consensus or idea of big double quotes is, but with the station, what I see unfolding in front of me is an empire, for God's sake, because there's more and more people coming on board all the time. And as that grows, the inspiration to give to these people that are all involved with it and give back to them so that they have a station that they just feel they're part of. Like we're like a big family, is humongous. So I've got to do promotion and marketing and sales and all sorts of things that keep me inspired. And I can't wait for year 5 to come along, let alone year 3. So it's
That's
just
great.
that it's a burning fire within you. You just know. You just know. It just comes. You don't have to do anything. If I don't feel like it for one day, I just don't do it.
Don't
Something
like to be
I
the
would
one to bring something bad into it, but we are at the end of our hour. So again, it's up to everybody. The conversation's going great. That's what I love about this group. Everybody just takes up from one another and talks to one another, and that's great. But I just want to let everybody know that we are at the end of the hour. So if anybody wants to continue to talk, or somebody has something to say they haven't got to say yet, then be a good time
We
to do that.
haven't heard much from Paul, and we haven't heard much from Adrian.
I'm being polite this week.
Oh, that's unusual for Adrian, isn't it?
I would say, I mean, really, if you want to know, if you, the best thing you can teach your kids really is that you can find the answer anywhere and from anyone, and just show them there's so many different ways to do things.
Google
I'm
it.
glad. Sorry.
Google it.
That's
Yes.
right, Anna.
but you know, the Google's not always there. I you know, sometimes I go to the library and I get an old telephone book because that has something from 20 years ago. And if I'm looking for something, you can that a lot of people forget things like that. You got to sometimes there's a mix of old school and new school. Technology is not the answer to everything. But don't get hung up on the education system in any country in any decade. There, it's never going to be perfect, and it's never even going to come close to being perfect. It's imperfect to an intolerable level. Do more yourself to educate them. A lot of people just do use the school as a daycare center for their kids, so that
They
and
do,
they don't.
yeah.
The parents don't put anything into the school or do anything to their kids for their education either at home. So You know, that's sort of like you get what you give. But learning something, there are so many different ways to learn it, and not from Google. And I love that. But I try. My kids still, they've got laptops and they've got phones, and they still have the cheek to come and ask me questions. And they've got Google on 2 devices. It astounds me. And I say, go and watch a YouTube video on it if you want to know how to do it.
Dad, what are you doing? They
That's
wanna
what I was
interact with
thinking when
you.
Henry Ford said he had all those buttons on his desk where he can call someone to give him the information. I was thinking, like what Anna said, I was thinking, I got Google, I got the internet.
Yeah,
That's
go
my buttons.
go to YouTube, and if you need a second source, go to Wikipedia and Google.
Well,
If you
I
need
think,
it fact
No,
checked.
I think
nowadays, I go to Chat GPT. It's called Chat GPT. It's a chat bot.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Knows me personally.
It's great. I typed into Chat GPT, what's the meaning of life? And I was amazed. I was doing everything right.
How deep it went. Yes, I also asked, is there a God? Is there a God? And what do you believe in? And there was like very particular way how it responds.
But I think
Wow.
the main thing is that in that chapter, it talks about the the mind group, and we've got that here,
Yeah.
because we got everyone's from different parts of life and different parts of the world, and we all got different experience. Some have got grown-up kids, some have got kids still in school, and I like how Paul has trusted Gregory and I to do this while he's away. And I'll tell you a fantastic story. Someone who came on the first call we had just before we started doing chapter 1 was a guy called Paul Cummins, who had the Flight Training Center. So I went and met him 2 weeks ago to find
Me
out
too.
what was the problem in his business. On Saturday, I took my kids to his warehouse. I had a son who was turning 12, and he brought a friend, and I took my eldest son, and we had 3 hours there flying 3 different kinds of aircraft. And my kids who play Xbox and do plane flying on that, it was just amazing watching them do all the switches and the sound and everything. Yeah, the simulator and sitting in the cockpit and everything. And see, now they will go back to school from that one experience, and maths is going to mean a whole lot more to them. Physics is going to mean a whole lot more to them. So sometimes giving the practical example, because remember the pyramid of learning, the least effective way of learning is having a lecturer in front of a class or reading by yourself. The best way to learn, the number one best way to learn something, is teaching other people how to do it. That's the best way to remember and learn, which seems ironic because it seems like a contradiction in terms. How can you teach something you haven't learned? But it is actually the most effective way to ingrain it in your habits and everything. And that's what we're doing here. We're teaching each other how to interpret the words from Think and Grow Rich. And, I'm surprised it's not a religion, this book.
Well, it's been around for a long time, and it's still around, and it's still invaluable. And I think, one of the greatest lessons from it all is I've been able to teach my children how to be great people in the face of adversity. It's all very well and fine when you're feeling on top of the world, but when you feel like crap and you've got a lot of conflicts going on around you and there's a lot of contrast in your life, how does one then feel good anyway and continue on feeling great anyway? And That's invaluable. That absolutely invaluable, because we all have our up days and we all have our down days. Whether we want to admit that or not, that's another story. But we have them, and to be able to follow through on processes that can help you swing out of contrast of conflict and negativity into positivity and achievement, that's an art, you know. That's all learning. It's all learning.
Yeah, Adrian, I think the reason they don't teach this is because they don't want everybody to know that they have the ability to do what they want and to think for themselves and to create, because then they wouldn't have control and power over everyone.
Of course they
Correct.
don't. And because it's something they can't control what's inside people's mind and their own spirit. That's why they don't want to do it. And that's why other political organizations in other countries call religion and spirituality the opium of the masses, because it is finding it in yourself. That's why they kill it. You know, you go back 20-30 years, difficult children who had Anna, you know, you think about school back when someone interpreted the lesson a different way, they were labeled artistic. Now they've got so many different labels for so many different behaviors at school. You'd say hyperactive. Now they call them
ADHD, ADD.
You know, it's there's so many. Just actually, most kids are just trying to be bohemian.
A lot of that, I think, is food as well.
Well, it's a combination of everything, but really, kids' behavior is, you know, it really is nothing more than just being hippies most of the time, but they're just shorter versions of hippies, you know?
Well, I remember distinctly when I was a kid at school, I always got the same thing on every report card for years. And my mother and father used to get very upset about it. And that was she disrupts the class. She gets up out of her seat and goes and talks to everybody. And she interferes with what the teacher's saying. Like, I always got that. And when I see it now, I think, well, I got into a lot of trouble over it, and it actually it deflated my spirit in as much as I went through a whole stage of not feeling good enough. And that was all part and parcel of it. Now, when my eldest boy was at school, he started doing the same thing. He'd get up out of his seat and go and sit with the other kids in the class and start talking to them. And when the headmaster walked into the classroom to talk to the teacher, he'd get up out of his seat and go and ask him what's he doing in the class and what does he want. And they put that down to he had ADHD, and they told me I would have to get him mentally assessed with the health department, and he would need to be medicated. And I said, excuse me, no child of mine is going to be medicated for anything. Thank you very much. And then I went and had a discussion with the headmaster about high-spirited children. And that's all they are. And that there's a way of disciplining that that isn't too difficult. And the upshot of that was that there was another teacher that my son was not in his class who came over, completely understood it, and said, from here on in, I'll take Jonathan under my wing and he'll come into my classes. And he hasn't looked back. Just hasn't looked back. So, I don't know.
Goodbye, Anna. Paul, I hope you're getting free Wi-Fi where you're staying and you're not paying some stupid fee in Northern Territory.
I'm actually in Port Augusta, and the place I'm staying in has given us 1.5 gigabytes of internet, and that goes really fast, especially when there's four of us. So I've been, as you can see, I've been struggling coming in and coming out.
Well, I think
so,
I might.
I'm glad I left this up to you and Gregory.
Well, Gregory, how are you doing at what must be 3 a.m. or coming up to 4 a.m.?
Andreas.
It is. It's just after 3 a.m. here. I'm in the Central Time, so
Oh,
it just
okay.
Wow.
so it's just after 3 a.m. where I'm at right now.
Wow.
So Anthony, don't. So we'll do chapter 6 next week, and then you'll be up to
Yes,
speed
yes,
with
yes.
everything.
I'll do 5 and 6.
Claire, I'm sorry we couldn't hear anything from you today. Okay. Gregory?
See.
Yeah, it's you know, a lot of people's been or some people's been popping off here. I know we're well past the hour, so if anybody has any final comments, if not, then we should probably move on. And next week will be about imagination, and that'll be a good topic. Very interesting. I'm sure everybody have great input on that, as
Yeah.
everyone always does. So, any final
Okay.
comments from anyone?
Yeah, I just want
Not-
to thank you all for being here. Like, what a great group.
Yeah, I want to say knowledge is nothing without action.
Right, absolutely. If it's not
Yeah,
applied,
what I want to do, I want to thank both Gregory and Adrian for taking over while I've been away. I really appreciate it. Angelica, it's great to have you on board. We do this every Monday night at 7 p.m. So, yeah, come back next week. And Anthony, I'm glad you had a great trip.
Yes. Yeah. I'll fill you in sometime.
And thank you, Claire. It's a shame we couldn't hear you.
well, I think we're done now. I think we can stop recording. And it was always, as always, it was great talking with everybody. It was great meeting Angelica.